My student stayed after school and said to me, "If you think my father will let you get away with this, you're sorely mistaken. One of my 11th grade students is selling drugs, and it's either Matthew, Sarah, or Eric. Over the last couple months, I've been investigating and asking questions to every student that will tell me anything. It hasn't been easy to get any real answers, but my conclusions have led me to these 3 students, as one of them definitely being the guilty one. My principal has called in the 3 students to his office and also brought in a sheriff. My principal said to me, 'All right, this is your show. We'll back you up.' I called in Matthew first, and he was terrified. He kept shifting around nervously in his seat. I said, 'Listen very closely to me. We know it was you, so you might as well come clean.' He started sweating and said, 'I'm so sorry.' I got excited, thinking I was right about him being guilty because I definitely wasn't sure. I asked, 'What are you sorry about? We need to hear you say it.' The principal and the sheriff stared daggers at him. He quietly said, 'I'm sorry I stole Monica's lunchbox. She left it in study hall and I was so hungry. My mom hasn't been able to afford any lunch money for me lately.' He broke down in tears. If this was an act, he was doing one hell of a job. I said, 'Go and wait outside.' I called in Sarah next. She sat and looked at us as if we were the most annoying people ever and said, 'Can we speed this up? I'm missing calculus.' I snapped at her and said, 'You better smarten up, Miss Attitude. You might as well come clean because we have evidence that you've been selling drugs to several other students.' She looked right at me and started cracking up laughing. She laughed so hard that she snorted and accidentally farted. She didn't even get embarrassed from it, just kept laughing. I told her to leave, then called in the last possible perpetrator. Eric walked in and had a stoic, direct look in his eyes. He looked at me and said, 'Do you think you can intimidate me with a big shot principal and his pork product pig patrol?' The sheriff was shocked he was talked about in this way and tried to suck in his belly. I was surprised with how much disregard he had for authority. He went on, 'If I told my dad about this, he'd sue the hell out of you and have all of your jobs.' I had to put him in his place and said, 'Okay, smartass, you're not that important. We have a simple question for you, and before you answer, you better tell the truth because if you lie, there will be consequences.' He started to get nervous. I asked, 'Are you selling drugs at school?' He abruptly stood up and said, 'My lawyer, who's also my father, will be contacting you.' He walked out. I was at a loss. My principal and the sheriff had different ideas as to who it was, but none of us knew for sure. Then I remembered an episode of CSY and how the cops caught one of the criminals. I called in all 3 kids and they all sat in front of us. Eric said, 'If you think my father will let you get away with this, you're sorely mistaken.' I said, 'Shut the hell up. No one cares about your big shot daddy.' I watched each one of them closely, and then I saw who the guilty party was. I said, 'Sarah, you can go, but curb that awful attitude of yours. It makes you really unlikable.' Sarah left, disturbed. Then I looked at both Eric and Matthew and said, 'So, which one of you started the operation?' They both glanced at each other and acted confused and innocent. I grabbed Eric's hand and exposed a white residue from underneath his fingernails to the sheriff and said, 'He holds the drugs. There's the residue.' And then I grabbed Matthew's hands and showed them to the sheriff. 'He holds the cash. He's too nervous to handle any drugs.' Matthew started crying again and confirmed that it was the truth. The sheriff smiled at me, impressed. Then just when I thought I was the winner, Eric leaped over to the sheriff, shoved him to the ground, pulled out his handgun, and jumped out of the window. The sheriff had eaten his fair share of pastries and didn't expect that at all. Matthew just kept weeping like a baby. It took about 20 minutes before another cop caught up to Eric, tackled, disarmed the gun, smacked him in the face a few times, and arrested him. It also came out that my principal was leaving this whole thing to me because he had bought some fentanyl from Eric 3 months ago and wanted to keep it quiet. He was fired after Eric's lawyer dad exposed him. My work here was done. Now it's back to grading history papers.